Alexander Hamilton, or Mr. Hamilton, and also the lovely and talented Mr. Mark Meer is
Hello.
with us. And I want to thank you guys for joining. So what we're trying to do here, just before we go into me picking these guys' brains apart, is kind of creating a place for people to congregate, chat, talk, and share their love of fandom in a time where we're not able to do that together like we normally can, thanks to the convention season kind of being waylaid by all of this bad stuff, and the ways that we can, people are finding ways to communicate and connect without having to actually physically be together. And this is going to allow us also to help our fellow artists, like Mark and his friends over at Dynasty, and also Mr. Hamilton, who is an artist that sells his wares at a lot of conventions, where he normally would be making some income there. Sadly, a lot of artists and creators are out of luck right now because of that. So the goal here is to kind of create that atmosphere and create some conversation and find ways that we can, people are, dealing with this and keeping their fandom live and being happy. So I want to thank you guys for being a part of this.
Well, thank you. You don't mind if I work while we're doing this, do you?
No, that's great. Please keep working. So I'm going to start with Mark. I wanted to ask you, because you and Belinda, your lovely wife Belinda, have been doing some amazing live videos in support of some of the groups that you guys are part of. And I wanted you to talk and give you a chance to talk about those and why you're doing them, where people can find them. I will be posting links in this video once it goes back up on YouTube. But can you talk about that?
Sure. Well, one of the first videos that went up was from the Citadel Theater, and my wife, Belinda Cornish, is a playwright. Her adaptation of Todd Babiak's The Garneau Block was just about to start previews, actually. So the cast was fully rehearsed. They did a dress rehearsal, and then everything closed down. I got to see the dress rehearsal, so I'm one of the few people who saw it. But yeah, it was essentially the Citadel Theater wanting a lot of their productions that halted to have an online presence, and also just to, as you mentioned, try to connect in this time when everyone is shuttered inside their own houses. And of course, it goes without saying that this has been devastating to a lot of people's lines of work, especially the arts, because a lot of people who live performance, for example, it's kind of hard to go see a play without going to a theater. And if all the theaters are closed, then of course there's nowhere to watch it. But now we managed to do an abbreviated scene where we played all the characters. Belinda and I are in the same house because we're married, so we're quarantined together. And also, I've been in a few sketch comedy troupes, so like everyone who's been in a sketch comedy troupe, I have a large box of hats somewhere in my house. So we basically did a scene playing about 8 different characters, switching hats back and forth. So that's up on the Citadel Theater's website currently. There is also a group down in Atlanta that I perform with on a fairly regular basis, Dad's Garage Theater. They're just an excellent bunch of folks, great improvisers, very funny people. My friends Lucky Yates and Amber Nash, who you may know from their voice work on Archer, are also core members of that theater. And when I was down there for DragonCon last August, we ended up taping a performance of our improvised Dungeons and Dragons show, where I'm the dungeon master, everyone else in the show are player characters in full costume with all their equipment and whatnot. And we'd really just recorded that for archival purposes. There was a fellow named John Hudgens who was shooting an improv documentary, and he was just planning on getting some B-roll of us doing the show. But he ended up liking the show, and so much that he just stuck around for the whole thing and shot it with 2 cameras. So when all the theater closures got announced, he was the one who contacted me and said, listen, I've got full footage of an improvised Dungeons and Dragons show. And fortunately, Dad's Garage is currently running what they call their social distancing TV channel. They have a Twitch channel.
Social distancing TV.
Yeah. They're basically, everyone's doing little shows from their own homes. I believe Lucky Yates is doing a cooking show. So if you ever wanted, to cook breakfast with Krieger, then do check out Dad's Garage Twitch channel. And they're going to be broadcasting the improvised Dungeons and Dragons show that we shot in August on Friday. Friday, March 27th, I believe at around 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on there. I'm sure you'll be sharing the links.
I'll be sharing all of the links for those on this video and online as well through our social media for sure. That sounds amazing.
And yeah, the thing to keep in mind though is this was shot back in August. So when you see this video of a bunch of people on stage together and touching each other and with an audience full of people, we are not breaking social distancing. This was a previously recorded show, just so you know. And then finally, there's the live improvised soap opera that I do called Dynasty. We meet on a regular basis. We have a weekly show with a continuing storyline, and essentially both we and our fans were unable to go to the theater anymore. And funnily enough, we'd ended on a cliffhanger where a bunch of the characters, our current season is set in the early 20th century. So a bunch of the characters had all been quarantined for the Spanish flu. Yeah, so
nicely done.
Well, it was in the news, and we didn't really know how big it was going to get at that point. So we did actually, with all of us streaming from our own homes, we basically picked up where we left off with the characters that were in quarantine, and we continued the storyline from there. And with everybody streaming from their own homes, of course, there's opportunity for more little, unplanned things to happen, like someone's dog coming in the room behind them and going nuts. So that ended up in us incorporating him into the show, and now there's a werewolf character in the show. So that all works out. And I'm not sure if you know, there's a program called Canada Performs that the National Arts Centre has put together, another sort of online concert series. And Dynasty will be doing a live stream for that in early April. I'm not sure if the date's been nailed down yet, but that'll be on the National Arts Centre's website. And I believe you should be able to watch it in the States as well.
That's fantastic. Wow. That is a lot. So kind of piggybacking off of that question, one thing I have been wanting to ask you, as an actor and as a fan, how did D&D specifically, because it's a big part of your life.
It is.
How did that specifically help grow you into the master improviser and actor that you are now?
Well, I'd have to completely credit Dungeons and Dragons as being my very first acting experience, and really what made me, that was the improv I was doing before I'd ever taken an improv class. I went to school in a very small town in rural Canada that didn't offer drama as an option. It was either straight scholastics or sports, really, and I went the scholastic route, but being a nerd and a Dungeons and Dragons player, that really gave me a creative outlet. And it helped that the group that I played with tended to play for laughs as well. So, for example, the innkeeper might be Barney Rubble, or that, lots of cartoon voices getting thrown into the mix. And especially when you're a dungeon master, as I often was, you have to play dozens of characters on the fly. So really, a lot of the early improv lessons I learned was from Dungeons and Dragons, and now I do an improvised Dungeons and Dragons show. So it all comes full circle.
Exactly.
Hakuna Matata.
And one thing that I was telling Hamilton about previously, was the hilarious House of Frightenstein, which you introduced me to, and how that fandom and that show in particular created you in a way, because you had one guy doing multiple characters, and you had all of these creatures, you have these monsters that were fascinating, and the incredible music. I still can't get over. They had Mama Told Me Not to Come in a kids show, which is just hilarious to me. But for both of you, so I'm bringing you into this, Hamilton. Can you talk about what kind of influenced you growing up that brought you into your love of art and creativity, but also your love of like horror films? If it wasn't obvious by their background, guys, that these guys love horror movies.
Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go?
Oh, I've been talking forever, Hamilton. Over to you.
All right. I think basically it started out with puppets, and then like Jim Henson and Muppets, and I wanted to be a puppeteer. And then as I got older, I thought, girls are cool, and I don't think it was good puppets, which I found not to be the case, But when I was a teenager, I didn't know. And that's my kitty.
He's a
out there.
werewolf.
But then I got into horror film, and I started writing Rick Baker in the back of Fangoria, and he would write back, and taped Tom Savini on Betamax when he was on David Letterman, and I just became more fascinated with the horror films than puppets for a while. And now it's all full circle where it's puppets and horror. Does that answer?
That is a good answer. So you're saying that Muppets and Jim Henson helped you find a love of horror films.
Oh yeah. Well, that, and also I loved the whole process of the makeup, and I picked up the Dick Smith book when I was a kid, and I had Fangoria magazine, and watching people become for horror films really made me go, wow, there's something to this. This is pretty cool. And little misanthrope growing up, so it was kind of a natural gravitation towards horror films.
So did you read Famous Monsters growing up as well? How much did Forey Ackerman really kick into your brain about the love of horror?
So Forey Ackerman didn't really register until I was more of an adult, because I loved Famous Monsters, but I didn't realize how important he was. As a kid, I was more interested in like the shock and the splatter, and in the 80s, that was more your Romeros and your Friday the 13th, and like the slasher, splatter stuff. And then as I got older, I began to appreciate the classic monsters and the Hammer horror film, and then by the time Forey Ackerman really registered as important, it's pretty near the end for him. But yeah, he's more important to me now than he was when I was forming.
Gotcha. Mark, what about you?
Well, funnily enough, even before, well, I guess around the same time as Hilarious House of Frightenstein, Hamilton and for those who don't know, Hilarious House of Frightenstein was basically a kids show in Canada that was shot. They shot everything over a 3-month period in the 1970. But in that time, they shot well over 200 episodes with one guy playing a variety of classic monsters, a vampire character, a witch character, and all of the characters in the kids show lived in this, haunted castle. So yeah, that definitely was a bridge to monster movies for me. But I like Hamilton was talking about monster makeup. There was a book I had when I was a kid that was just called Movie Monsters, and it basically had little entries on all the classic monsters, but also weirdly it had Blackula and Young Frankenstein in there.
I had that book.
Yeah, I think a lot of people of the same generation had that book, and it also had like little monster plays that you could put on in the back. And again, even though I didn't really do drama in school, that was something that always appealed to me. And of course, I tried to create like the Frankenstein makeup that they described in the book, and the headpiece you could make out of paper mache and all that. So yeah, it was always something that I loved, and I always liked Halloween and gravitated more towards the creepy, spooky, like Addams Family and monsters and whatnot.
So one thing that I wanted to ask both of you, and I'll start with you, Mark, is the fact that, what you were saying about you were doing Dungeons and Dragons virtually. Right now, I think that's something that's actually picking up not only because of the situation, but also it allows people to do something across the like miles, and that's pretty amazing right now. Can you talk about how you came to get into the virtual D&D, and how you utilize it for people that might not know that this is a thing that they can do?
Well, I'd done it, essentially been invited to join other people's games, and that's how they were playing already. And one of the first ones that I played in, it was some folks that I'd met, that I'd known for a few years through DragonCon, and got to know better and hang out with at Gen Con, the big role-playing convention. And yeah, the very first game we played, I think we had myself in Canada, a couple of people in the States, someone in the UK, and someone in Australia, and all just playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And that's really nice because, of course, I've got friends all over the world. I'm actually going to be playing a remote Dungeons and Dragons game later this week with some friends in the UK, and we've done like some Call of Cthulhu LARP stuff together, but very little actual Dungeons and Dragons. So this is going to be fun.
Nice. Yeah, and I've heard you talk about those. So is that the LARPing in the castle that you do, where you actually?
That was D&D in a castle, which was another thing. That's actually playing Dungeons and Dragons in a castle. But if you want to wear, a robe and a wizard hat while you do it, no one is going to stop you.
There is no judgment here. So Hamilton, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about what your art is so neat. Like, it's so unique and different. And like, as I said, back in the background, if you see it, he has got this amazing giant creature from the Black Lagoon head, but he's also got some other things that he's created. And one thing that you do that I really dig, and there's a cattail right there. Awesome. Is the fact that you take like pop culture memorabilia, normal, sweet, good, wholesome, like Kewpie dolls, and you create things with them, out of them, where you take kind of like the other side of the pop culture world and mesh it together. Can you talk about where you came up with the idea to do this and where your inspirations come from?
I have no idea where I got the idea. I had some Kewpie dolls kicking around once, and I was like, that would be kind of cool if I made that into a divine from Pink Flamingos, and I did. And I just, hello, kitty. Yeah. This is all she does. She knows when I'm doing something. Yeah, then I just started doing Kewpies. Then I started doing their Frisch's Big Boys, and then one day I got a message from Frisch's headquarters, and I was like, uh-oh, it's a cease and desist. But they were like, we love what you do. Can you do one for us? And they mailed me a case of damaged box Big Boy banks that I turned into everything from Ash from Evil Dead. And I unfortunately don't have a lot of stuff around at the moment, because I once this whole thing hit, people have been very supportive about buying artwork. So I've just been, as I make it, I sell it. But I've let's see, I got this. Here's a little baby doll.
The Baphomet.
Nice work.
Well, thank you. And then so here's a little Kewpie doll of old Greg.
Yay!
Yeah.
And then I'm working on, I don't know if how well you can see it. It's because it's still in its coding and stuff. But this is, I've been sculpting this one. It's going to be a plague doctor. You get a little mask.
Because we all have twisted and dark senses of humor.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Seems appropriate. But there's his little mask. Toucan Sam, but it's going to be able to come off. And I do everything from like little tiny stuff like, and I'll like do reclaim. Like, here's my praying hands. I turned into devil's hands.
Those are fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, people love Satan. And then let's see here. Can you see that? It's in frame.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it looks like a giant. Each one of the scales is like hand cut. It's made from chipboard, and there's a bicycle helmet inside. But I love giant carnival masks. Excuse my mess. There's another. You see that guy?
Oh yeah.
All right, here we go. Oh, Satan there. Yeah, this is, I live in a studio apartment now, so there's my giant mask up there, which I did not make, but I love it.
Oh, is that like a giant-sized Ben Cooper mask, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and a giant-sized green giant.
Yeah.
Actually,
that's
a miniature-sized green giant, I guess.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool.
Was
that by Zombie A Go-Go? Is that who made that?
No. This actually was it's way bigger. It's like 4 feet tall, and it was for Target stores. Had them the vacuum form one. So it's like the really hard to find one, and apparently they're worth a lot of money. But I traded 2 Godzilla posters for it at a Comic-Con.
I think you got the better deal.
Oh, I did. At the time, I didn't think so, but now I know so.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So So I wanted to ask both of you too, with what's happening and where we're all kind of stuck, what was the last show you've really binge watched? Because that's the big thing right now. Everybody is binge watching everything. They just made Picard available for free for a month, where you can stream everything on CBS All Access for 30 days.
Oh.
Yeah, so pretty smart to do that. And so what is the last thing that you binge watched, Mark?
We actually already got Picard for free because it was just on our Sci-Fi channel here in Canada.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, didn't have
Lucky.
to subscribe. But let's see. Succession. Actually, I just binge watched that, the Brian Cox series.
Oh, yeah, I caught some of that, and that is twisted stuff.
Hmm.
I
It's really good.
Show, right?
It's an amazing cast. I really enjoyed that. That was fantastic. So yeah, that would be the last thing that I've been watched. But I do have to, there's a few series I have to get through. I haven't seen season 2 of Happy yet. I was thinking of watching that.
Oh my God, yeah, that's a great show. I love Chris Maloney just being insane. What about you, Hamilton?
I just watched the latest season of Better Call Saul.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, great.
Nice.
And I love that show. I like it better than Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad makes me feel dirty, and I have to confess I've never watched the entire series because I'll watch like a season and go, oh, this is amazing. I feel sick, and then I have to turn it off for a while because it just makes me feel dirty. It's well done. It's a well fucking done show, but it's also like, oh God, they're making meth. I don't like this. I feel uncomfortable.
But you're rooting for them.
But yeah, you catch yourself and you go, oh, ooh, who am I anyhow?
Yeah, I agree with you about Better Call Saul, man. Bob Odenkirk is amazing in that.
Oh yeah,
he's so good. He's so good.
The whole everyone in that show is great. Like
Yeah.
they even have like the love interest, which a lot of times in those shows is a throwaway. She's amazing herself. Like every actor in that show has got a powerful part.
Yeah. And and of course, Mr. Michael Mando as Nacho. Man, he's doing some amazing work.
Oh
there.
my God, yeah. But just I don't know if you've seen the last season they posted on. I guess it's season 3, is it, on Netflix? But they really get into him a little bit more in that season, and I was very impressed by that. I don't want to give anything away if anyone hasn't watched it yet. I've also been watching Toast of London. Have you watched that?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I finally got my husband to watch What We Do in the Shadows, the TV series, and we finally got to the scene where the trial of the vampires happens,
Right.
and
Yeah.
like literally everybody is there, and Paul Rubens looks the same.
Oh yeah.
It's creepy. It's like, are you really a vampire? He's really a vampire. There's no way. I was gonna say the show that I just binge watched. There's been 2. Sabrina, the Sabrina series on Netflix, which is truly disturbing on a lot of levels, and the stuff they've gotten away with is insane to me. But Michelle Gomez as Madame Satan is amazing in that. She is just fantastic. And the other show was Tiger King, which Hamilton, that is so up your alley.
I've heard about those.
It's
Yeah.
on my to-do list.
Mark's heard about it. Tiger King, you realize halfway through the first episode that none of these people are decent human beings at all. There are no good people in any of it. They're just horrible, bad people, all of them. Even the one that's supposed to be the good one might have killed her husband, and probably did, and probably fed him to a tiger to get rid of the body.
Okay.
As one does.
As one will, as you will, if they're there, use them. This is for Hamilton. Hamilton, what is the one piece that you have created that you've done your artwork with? What is the one that you're the most proud of out of all of it so far?
It's really whatever I've done lately, because I find that every time I do a new any art, if it sits around too long, I hate it. Like I'm so super critical of my own work. I'm like, oh, I could have done this better. And I'm already looking at these ones here that have been sitting here for a couple of days, and I'm like, I should do more to that, but I have to get them out of the house. Otherwise, I'll just keep working and spend 50 hours on a piece that I sell for $100. This isn't worth it.
So, kind of along that line, I know there are a lot of people right now that they're getting bored and they're wanting to do things. And you are really savvy with how you do your artwork. You're really good with finding ways to use free things, stuff around the house kind of a thing. Can you talk about, pointers or tips for people that might want to start creating, like you're doing, a more, like taking old dolls or something like that and just creating something out of them?
Yeah, like when you work with older dolls or any kind of doll, like you got to remember, like, plastic breaks down. You got to take that into account. Vinyl, like the softs, the squishy Barbie doll heads, that's like a vinyl, and then the bodies are usually like a polyethylene plastic, like an Army Man plastic. Paint doesn't really stick to that, so you need to do a secondary coat of some kind on top of it. If you get like a harder plastic or a harder vinyl, you can flat spray paint over it to get your base coat and then work off of that. So it depends on, like with these Cupid dolls, like this one here that I've been working with, I had to fill it with, I just jam it full of paper. Sometimes I'll put plaster in there, sometimes foam, but the foam will squeeze out. You just got to make it so it doesn't squeeze. And then I'll do like on these, I'll just take tissue paper. I got a nice black tissue paper and Mod Podge, and then I kind of cover it. It's labor intensive, but it's the best thing for it. Then you get like a harder plastic, like that's like a harder plastic one. You can actually spray paint directly onto that. You don't need to put any of the secondary coat because it won't squeeze in on you. And that's the thing, if you squeeze it, the paint will come off. So you can build off of that, and I'll do like a pretty simple base coat of stuff, but then I'll use whatever fits. Like I've used plastics. I use like this old Greg. The hair on it is a combination of this packing material, but you have to coat the whole thing so that it becomes almost rubberized, and then I'll kind of put that over top for the hair. And unfortunately, you can't feel this to the screen, but it's very firm, and it's been coated with like a smoothing coat of acrylic. Then also take this netting, whatever the fuck it is, and then that kind of goes on there too. And whatever works, then I'll build up with sometimes cardboard, sometimes I use actual, I use a lot of what's called chipboard. And chipboard is essentially, let's see, the easiest to find chipboard would be what comes with beers and sodas and macaroni and all that shit. Then this is the stuff that goes in between bottles. And then in my closet, I've got a giant industrial roll of it that costs a lot of money, but you can buy rolls of it for construction purposes. They put them on floors to not damage floors when they're doing construction. And then you can even get more specialty stuff. And I've done fiberglass, and I've done resins, and I've done all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, I really like the simple things. I like to be able to sit in my house and do them at my leisure. Like I've been getting away from doing a lot of artwork for hire and just doing what I love doing, which is kind of nice because I have other work. I make money elsewhere. I don't have to be an art whore anymore. But I still do it because I have to, compulsion.
I remember when you made the horror babies, the little horror babies.
Yeah, the little monster babies, yeah.
And I really screwed you over because I asked you to do a darkness for me, and it ended up being the hardest thing you've ever done, and you just charged me $20 for it. But he created darkness from Legend. He made a little baby version of him for me, and the horns were like this big out of it. The thing itself was only this big. So one horn was the size of the actual baby part. I have it behind here somewhere, but I still own it.
Yeah. No, I do little miniature versions of those now. I don't bother the big ones anymore.
Those were great. Those were really cute that you did.
Yeah,
So
my new policy in artwork now, just so anyone knows, I don't do straight up commissions. If somebody wants something, they can make a suggestion, and then if I feel like making it, I'll contact them. Because it sucks all the fun out of it. Like when you have to do something, you're like, oh God. Because I'll do a piece and everyone's like, oh, I want one of those, and I've already made it 3 times. Go on. There you go.
and we have cat butt.
Hey, look at that.
Yay!
You're welcome, Apocalypse. Fuck her up.
Oh God. Oh my God. Well, guys, I wanted to give you a chance at the end of this to I wanted to know, because part of what we're doing here is we're trying to get people together and to talk and to, communicate across the ways. And I wanted to ask each of you what is probably your most favorite convention memory. So Mark, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, it would have to be the first time I was at a convention and somebody walked by me in a very elaborate Commander Shepard costume. Now, for those who don't know, I did the voice of Commander Shepard in the Mass Effect video game trilogy. So actually getting to see someone walk by dressed up as my character and like in a very good costume that you could tell someone with skill had put a lot of work into, that was extremely gratifying. So of course I immediately introduced myself and asked for a picture.
And then you said you had to go.
And then I said I had to go. Yeah.
So the person didn't realize that was your character?
Well, they didn't until I excitedly ran up to them and went, "I play that guy! Oh, that's a great costume!" And yeah, so I was just excited to meet them as they were to meet me. And again, it was an amazing costume.
That's fantastic. Alex, or Hamilton, I keep seeing your name and I keep saying it. Hamilton, what was your favorite convention memory that you've had? Because you've had some doozies, because I've been there for some of them.
Yeah, some of them I can't really talk about. I enjoy. I do interviews for Horror Hound, like sit-down interviews with people, and I think that's probably my favorite thing to do now is just do the one-on-one interviews with people where we're removed from the convention floor, we're removed from all the fans, and we're in like a little room with a green screen, and I always make sure that I'm like, look, I don't need to talk to you about why you're here. Like I honestly don't give a shit about Hellraiser or Friday the 13th or any of that stuff. I mean, I like them. I'm glad you played those characters or involved in that. But you've been talking about that all weekend. What do you want to talk about? And then just finding out things about the either the creators of those things or the actors or performers or the effects people, like just talking about food or other things or just random nonsense. And it's fucking amazing to just learn more about people because no one ever asked them about that. They only want to know about the thing that they're known for. And they just get sick of talking about it. And then watching them like light up and get really excited and have a good time. I enjoy that aspect of it. I also feel terrible for poor Doug Jones. He can't touch a single face right now.
Oh, it's true. Oh, poor Dougie. Yeah, he's a toucher. He's a very sweet, huggable man. Oh, that made me sad. Why did you have to say that? God. Yeah, the one that stood out for me that you did was when you spoke. It was Scott Wilson, and you just sat there and talked for like 2 hours.
Oh, actually, you know what? You mean at the convention?
Mm-hmm.
I totally forgot about it. Yeah, it was Scott Wilson and Lou Temple, myself, and some other person. I forget who it was. I think you might have shown up at one point.
I probably did.
Yeah, but he just sat there. We went to my room where I had my bar kit and I made old fashions, and then went up to Scott's room and we got cigars, and then we went outside, and Lou Temple and myself were sitting there like, cheaper, Scott. Have you ever met? And he would regale us with stories of like meeting blonde.
Mae West?
Not Mae West. Beheaded.
Jane Mansfield.
Jane Mansfield. Thank you. I don't know why I blanked out on that. But he said I don't know why everyone knows Marilyn Monroe because Jane Mansfield was like that all the time because she'd walk into a room and light it up, and where Marilyn Monroe would kind of like, she was a wallflower unless there's a camera. Then she would light up, but then she would kind of power down when no one was looking at her. And he also told us about the only time I ever worked with Paul Newman. And he said, oh God, that's my biggest regret, he apparently was so nervous about doing a reading for a project. He gets to the casting for it, and he was so nervous he took a shot of whiskey on an empty stomach.
Oh.
And he's in the reading, and he's so nervous he gets butterflies and he vomits into a garbage can, and the whole room smells of whiskey. And he goes, Paul Newman just leaned over and whispered and sat back, didn't say a word to him, and then he was basically blackballed from every Paul Newman project from that point forward.
Oh.
Yeah, and he goes, I always wanted to explain myself or apologize, but Paul Newman he was very intense. So yeah, I also got to do the very last interview with Scott Wilson. I didn't know at the time it was his last interview, and but it was everything seemed a little off. And then later on, after he passed, Sarah, one of his managers, told me that he only agreed to do it because it was me, and I get teary thinking about it. But he was apparently almost completely deaf, and he couldn't see my lips because I had a mustache. He was guessing. He was guessing what I was asking him, and he just responded. So I was like, he's answering the questions very strangely. But but now I found out why, and it was good. Yeah, and he actually I have a project that I'm working on that I'm not allowed to speak about. I've told you about it privately, but he was the reason why I went down this road. He was the one who told me you need to write that script to make that movie.
Well, and, you just told everybody.
Hey, I can tell you that. I can say that much. I'm not telling you what it is, but and he was supposed to be my star, and yeah.
Yeah, Scott was amazing. Well, it's payback, bitch. So the one thing that I was gonna say was, because of Scott, you one of the best memories I think I've had at a convention, it was drinking moonshine with Scott, the killer from Wolf Creek, my friend Jerem, and then Scott Wilson ran into the hotel and grabbed Mads Mikkelsen and dragged him outside so he would drink moonshine with us. And nice. You might have been there, and it was real. It was real moonshine, like real Kentucky, made in the hills. And Scott's drinking it like water at the time, and Mads is like, "What?" We handed it to him, and he just takes it and goes, "That's good." And it's like we got a Bond villain drinking moonshine with us.
Was it the Applejack stuff?
It was Applejack or peach pie, something like that. And then one of my other friends ate the actual peach inside the moonshine, which is just, yeah, that's not a good choice, but he did it, and he didn't die.
I call it time travel juice. Because you traveling 15 minutes into the future, and you're like, how the hell did I get here? And why is it later than a minute ago?
Yeah, that's true. We've just scandalized anybody that's watched this. They'll never. But guys, I want to thank you so much. I know Mark. Poor Mark has no throat left after 8 hours of doing D&D, and but I just want to point out, Mark has shared with us on camera before the cabinet of curiosities behind him, which is filled with amazing things and goodies, and the Professor Chaos mask, correct?
Oh, yeah, Dr. Von Chaos.
Dr. Van Chaos, and so he's got a wonderful house full of things. At some point, I'm gonna talk him into taking us on a tour of his home, because I know he's got some cool stuff in there. But I want to thank you, Mark, for taking the time and joining us. This was always so much fun to talk to you. I'm glad to introduce you to the Mr. Hamilton there, who has some of the very same taste as we do, and you guys are fantastic. I hope that everybody shares this, because I will be posting this with links for everyone to see. Get the word out. Just because we're kind of homebound right now doesn't mean we can't enjoy what we love and create what we love. And share the word. As I've said, spread the word, not the virus, and let everybody know, we're we're still loving what we do, and we can still create from where we're at. And thank you guys so much for this. This is so much fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys. So again, I will be sharing this across all social media platforms. There will be links down below that you guys can click on to check these guys out and doing what they do. We'll have a link to Hamilton's page on Facebook where you can see what he's got available right now to buy. And we'll have all the links to all the things that Mark is doing, because he never stops. He is always working every time I see him. So thank you guys again. And thank you for joining us. And we'll see you on part 2 of CoronaCon, and we may have a couple other special guests showing up as well for that too. So, and oh, also Erica, I hope your face isn't hurting too bad. We were going to have another artist on here from Atomic Cotton, and she got the great news that she had to have a tooth pulled literally 4 hours ago. So yeah, she couldn't be talking right now, but she'll be joining us later, and we'll also have a link to Atomic Cotton down below as too. So thank you guys so much again, and we'll see you later. Stay safe.